Welcome to my channel. Try to hear the latest story.
My 13-year-old niece laughed, her voice sharp as she said, "Mom claims if you vanish tomorrow, nobody would care," while unwrapping the $850 phone I'd gifted her. The room, filled with 30 family members, erupted in laughter. Everyone but me. I gave a slight nod, and with a few swipes on my phone, I canceled every payment, subscription, and financial support I'd been providing. Gone. That night, I left, cut all ties, and disappeared, leaving only a black duffel bag behind. Inside it, they'd find... Mom claims if you vanish tomorrow, nobody would care. My niece's giggle cut through the air as she tore the plastic off the $850 phone I'd bought her. Her fingers moved delicately, but her words stung like a blade. The living room buzzed with the voices of my family, 30 people, their chatter loud and thoughtless. A birthday cake sat untouched on the kitchen counter, candles unlit, but a fire was already burning inside me. My sister, Lindsay, didn't glance up. She lounged on the sofa, scrolling her phone, her lips curling into a smug grin, as if she just won a silent argument. Mom was in the kitchen, stirring a pot, acting oblivious, but I caught the slight tilt of her head, a quiet endorsement. Dad? He didn't bother hiding his amusement. He chuckled, raised his glass, and muttered, "Well, she's got a point." Laughter spread like wildfire. My cousins smirked, and even Uncle Greg, who barely knew me beyond holiday dinners, snorted into his drink. I stood there, frozen, feeling like an idiot, like the idiot I'd always been. The one who paid their bills. The one who fixed their messes. The one who was never enough. "Thanks for the phone, Uncle," my niece chirped, already nestled against her mother, her eyes glued to the glowing screen. I watched her, my pulse pounding, my face burning, the room closing in around me. It felt like I was choking. But I stayed silent. I just nodded, like always. Nodding, smiling, pretending. Always pretending. Lindsay finally looked up, her eyes locking onto mine, and in that moment, I saw it. A glint of triumph, of satisfaction, like she'd been waiting for me to stand there, mute, humiliated. "All right, everyone, time for cake." Mom's voice cut through, bright and breezy, brushing aside the tension. But the bitterness lingered in my mouth, heavy and sour. I drifted to the kitchen, leaning against the counter as they gathered around the table. Candles flickered, wishes were whispered, and I stood there, hands balled into fists, jaw tight. Beneath the pain, something colder took root. I felt my phone in my pocket, a few quick swipes, and every bill, every subscription, every financial lifeline I'd provided for Lindsay, for Mom, for Dad. It was all gone. My fingers moved on instinct, a choice I didn't realize I'd made until it was done. Erased. Just like that. Their voices faded into a distant murmur. The room tilted, filled with familiar faces that suddenly felt alien. They laughed, they sang, they celebrated, and I was invisible, a ghost with a credit card. But no longer. I slipped out without a word. No one noticed. Of course they didn't. My niece's words were the one truth they'd spoken all night. I didn't go home. I went to my apartment, packed a few essentials into a small bag, and then paused. The black duffel bag sat in the corner of my closet, nearly forgotten. Tonight, it had a purpose. I filled it, not with my belongings, but with something else. Something they wouldn't expect. I returned to the house. The noise was still chaotic. No one saw me slip in, place the duffel by the staircase, and leave. Then I was gone. Truly gone. By the time they realized, I'd be a memory. But inside that duffel, let them open it. Let them try to make sense of it. The quiet didn't last. I expected outrage, panic. But what came was chaos. The next morning, my apartment door rattled under heavy knocks. No calls, no courtesy, just fists pounding the wood. "Open the door. You think you can just walk away?" Dad's voice, raw with fury. I stayed silent, watching the door tremble like it might break. "I know you're in there. You think you're clever? You think you're above us?" His voice wavered, not just with anger, but with something else. Fear. I didn't respond. I wasn't playing their game. The knocking stopped. I heard his heavy steps fade, a muttered curse, the slam of a car door. But it wasn't over. Not even close. 20 minutes later, my phone lit up. A text from Mom, one line. "How could you abandon your own family?" I didn't answer. An hour later, Lindsay called. I watched her name flash on the screen and let it ring. Then again, and again. 6 times. Finally, a text. "You think you're so smart? You think we can't survive without you? Fine. See how long you last without us." I read it and smirked. Was that meant to scare me? Or tempt me? The real storm hit that evening. I was stepping out of the shower when I heard a key in the lock. I froze. No one had a key to my place. No one except... The door flew open. Dad stormed. In, face red, sweat dripping, Mom trailing behind, her eyes wide and frantic. "You think you can shut me out?" Dad roared. "Get out!" I said, my voice steady but cold. "Get out? Get out?" He laughed, bitter and mocking. "This is what you've become? Ditching your own family? You used me," I said, leaning against the counter, towel still in hand. "There's a difference." Dad stepped closer, fists clenched. "You ungrateful little snake. Try it." The words came out calm, deliberate. A dare. His hand shook, but he didn't swing. We both knew he wasn't a fighter. He was a loudmouth who hid behind threats, too scared to face his own weakness. "What did you do?" Mom's voice cracked. "The cards are dead. Lindsay can't pay her bills. The house payment, it's all gone." "Exactly," I nodded. "Everything I handled. Everything I paid for. It's done." Dad's laugh was hollow. "You think you're some big shot? You think we need you?" "Looks like you do," I said, shrugging. "Since you broke into my home to beg." "Beg?" he spat. "You think we're begging?" Enough. My voice cut through his rant, sharp and final. "I'm done." Mom stepped forward, hands trembling. "Please, this is your family. We're all you have." "All you have," I corrected. "I'm done being your ATM, your servant, your punching bag." Dad's face contorted. "You little..." I raised a hand. "Get out, now." "You can't do this," Mom whispered, tears spilling. "This is heartless." "Heartless?" I laughed, the sound bitter. "Heartless is calling your son worthless while spending his money. Heartless is using me and laughing in my face." Dad lunged forward, but I didn't move. He stopped, his bravado crumbling. "You'll regret this," he muttered. "You'll come crawling back." "I won't," I said, my voice like stone. They left, the door slamming behind them. But I knew this wasn't the end. The next day, they tried a new approach. Lindsay showed up at my workplace. I saw her through the office window, face pale, eyes red from crying. My boss looked uneasy as she waved frantically at me. I stayed at my desk. "Sir, there's a woman here," the receptionist said. "She's nobody," I replied, eyes on my screen. She didn't leave. I saw her arguing with the receptionist, her voice rising, hands shaking. Security stepped in, escorting her out. I knew she'd try again. That night, my landlord knocked. "There's a situation," he said, shifting nervously. "Your family's downstairs causing a scene." "Tell them to leave or I'll call the cops," I said. He blinked. "But they're your family." "No," I corrected. "Not anymore." I watched from my window as they shouted and flailed until security dragged them away. But I knew them. I knew they'd keep trying. And I knew, back at their house, that black duffel bag was waiting for them to open it, to see how far I'd go. The silence didn't hold. I knew them too well. Silence was just the pause before the next outburst. For days, I ignored their calls, their texts, their frantic voicemails. I even took time off work, savoring the quiet. But I wasn't naive. I knew they wouldn't quit. It started with Lindsay's rants, messages dripping with venom, blaming me for their chaos. Mom's tearful voicemails came next, begging me to be the bigger person, to save them. Then Dad. At first it was fury, Threats, insults, the usual noise. But then his tone shifted. Calm, calculated, an invitation. Son, let's settle this like adults. No games, just us. There's a game this weekend. Our team's playing. Come, we'll talk. A trap. I felt it in my gut. But I agreed. I wanted this. So I went. But when I saw the empty seats around him and the black duffel bag clutched in his hands, I knew I was right. They didn't want peace. They wanted control. But I wasn't the same fool who stood in their living room, nodding and pretending. Not anymore. The stadium roared, a chaotic pulse of cheers and stomping feet. A perfect place for secrets to vanish. Dad was waiting in section 12, row F, the seats around him empty despite the packed game. He spotted me, waving with one hand, the other gripping the black duffel. My duffel. I walked down the steps, each step deliberate, my eyes fixed on him. He looked eager. A twisted grin spread across his face like he thought he'd already won. Didn't think you'd show, he yelled over the noise, patting the seat beside him. Ready to talk like men? Talk? I sat, my gaze locked on the duffel, in his lap. Is that what this is? Oh, it's more than that. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a hiss. You thought you were clever, huh? Running off, cutting us off. But you left something behind. His fingers tapped the duffel. We found it, and guess what, genius? We know. Know what? I asked, my voice steady, matching the cold breeze sweeping the field. Your lies, your secrets. His voice sharpened. You think you're clean? Better than us? His eyes gleamed with something between fear and rage. I should have seen it. All those times you played the hero acting like you were saving us. I almost laughed. Open it then. See what you think you've got. His eyes narrowed, a flicker of doubt. Don't play games. I don't need to open it. I know you've been hiding things. Stealing from us. Pretending to be the good guy. Stealing? I leaned back, the cold metal seat biting into my spine. The only thing in there is the truth. The crowd roared as the home team scored, but in our little corner, it was all tension, silence, and his trembling hands on the duffel. You're bluffing, he muttered, trying to make me second guess. But it's over. We're telling everyone what you really are, how you abandoned your family. Go ahead, I said, nodding toward the field. Tell them. Tell them how I paid Lindsay's rent for years, how I bailed you out when you gambled away your savings, how I bought that phone for your precious granddaughter right before she said I was nothing. His face darkened. Shut up. No, let's be clear, Dad. That bag's full of proof. Every cent I spent, every sacrifice I made. And you think, you have leverage? His grip tightened, knuckles pale. Don't talk to me like that. Like what? I leaned forward, my voice steady, my eyes burning, like the disposable tool you always treated me as. The walking bank account. The errand boy. Shut up, he shouted, standing, drawing stares from nearby rows. Sit down, I said, my voice like ice. For a moment, I saw it. Fear in his eyes. He hated me, but more than that, he feared losing control. Or what? He forced a laugh, thin and desperate. You gonna hit your own father? You think anyone here will side with you? You think they'd side with you? I gestured to the crowd, strangers who didn't care about his bravado. You're just a loud old man with a bag full of debts. They don't know me, but they don't need to. His face twisted, his voice a low growl. You snake. Snake? I smiled. I was your lifeline. And now you're sinking without me. He swung. I saw it coming, his hand, heavy and shaking, aiming for my face. But I didn't move, I didn't flinch. He wanted a scene, a reaction, proof I was the villain he needed me to be. But I just stared, calm, unyielding. His fist stopped inches from my face, trembling. I should have left you on the street, he whispered, his voice breaking. You were always a leech. Funny, I whispered back, leaning close enough to smell the stale whiskey on his breath. That's what I thought of you. Something in him shattered. His hand dropped, his shoulders sagged. The crowd's cheers grew deafening, masking the collapse of his pride. I reached out, snatched the duffel from his lap. He didn't resist. "Want to know what's in here?" I asked, loud enough for nearby fans to hear. "Everything I did for you. Every dollar. Every sacrifice." People were staring now, whispering, some pulling out phones. "You want truth?" I unzipped the duffel, pulling out a stack of documents. "Here it is. Proof I kept you afloat. Saved your house. Twice." His face went pale. "And you want to talk about betrayal?" I stood, holding the papers high. "You betrayed me the day you treated me like your personal bank. The day you laughed when they said I was nothing." "Stop," he whispered, sinking into his seat, his voice small. "No, you wanted a spectacle? You've got one." I tossed the papers at his feet, and they scattered like ashes down the steps. I turned, climbing the stairs, past the gawking faces, past the murmurs. "You can't just leave!" he shouted, his voice breaking, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. His voice was nothing now. They didn't give up. Not at first. The next day, after Dad's pride crumbled on those stadium seats, my phone became a war zone. Call after call. Texts flooded in. Accusations, pleas, threats. A cycle of desperation in their familiar voices. I ignored it all. Dad was the first to crack. His calls went from rage to begging within hours. "We can fix this," he lied. "Let's forget it all. Be a family." I didn't answer. Mom's texts came next, heavy with guilt. "You're tearing us apart." "We didn't mean it. Family's all we have." I didn't read them all. Lindsay tried too. Her messages were pure poison. "You're a coward. A selfish, useless coward. You've destroyed us. Then, please, just talk to me." I was scared. "Don't do this." But I did. Silence. That was my response. That was my vengeance. They didn't get it at first. They thought I was playing a game, bluffing. But as days turned to weeks, as bills piled up, as their friends turned away, they understood. They couldn't reach me. Their landlord called, stammering about unpaid rent. "Not my problem," I told him. Mom sent a photo. Them in the dark, a single candle on their table. We're out of options. I deleted it without a second thought. One evening, walking home from the store, I saw him. Dad. Pacing outside my building, face pale, hands trembling. The fire in his eyes was gone, replaced by fear. He saw me, his face lighting up with desperate hope. He rushed over. "Look, you can't do this. You're my son." "No," I said, not slowing. "I was your bank." He stepped in front of me, voice cracking. "We raised you, gave you everything. You used me." I met his gaze. "And now you're empty." I tried to move past, but he grabbed my arm. "You don't get to walk away," he snarled, the old anger flaring. "You think you're better than us?" "I know I am." I pulled free. He swung. Slow, weak. It barely grazed my shoulder, more a push than a punch. He stumbled, catching himself against the wall, panting. "Pathetic," I said, the words slipping out. His face twisted, rage flickering. "You'll come crawling back. You always do. You're nothing without us." I laughed, sharp and loud, echoing down the street. "I was nothing with you." I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. That night, I buried my phone in a drawer and left it there. The messages, the calls, they stacked up, but they couldn't touch me. A week later, a letter arrived. Mom's shaky handwriting. "Please, your father's ill. Lindsay's falling apart. We're breaking. Only you can fix this." I crumpled it without finishing. They were falling apart? Good. For the first time, I wasn't. I didn't move. I didn't change my number. I didn't hide. I stayed right where I was. But I left their world behind. And their world collapsed without me. Lindsay's friends stopped answering. Mom's distant cousins, the ones who sent holiday cards, ignored her now. Dad, he lost his job after one too many outbursts. But I didn't care. I didn't watch. I lived. I cooked for myself. Slept without worry. Took long walks through a city I'd once ignored, feeling freedom in every quiet moment. They were just echoes now, ghosts I'd left in a crumbling house. And I was free. Months passed, and silence became a companion. I woke when I wanted, ate without guilt, spent weekends wandering the city, savoring the peace. Sometimes I'd brace for the buzz of desperate texts, the weight of guilt, the frantic voices demanding I fix their mess, but it never came. I'd done the impossible. I'd buried them, not in the earth, but in my life. One crisp fall morning, I walked down Main Street, past the bakery where I'd bought overpriced cakes for Lindsay's birthdays, the shop where I'd spent fortunes on gifts, the diner where I'd covered family dinners, always so generous until I wasn't. Ghosts. Just ghosts. At the corner, a street musician strummed a slow, raw melody. His voice was rough, fingers gliding over the strings. Not perfect, but real. I stopped, letting the music wash over me. It wasn't about love or loss. It was about release. The world moved around me, vibrant and alive. I stood still, breathing it in. When the song ended, I dropped a 20 into his guitar case. He nodded, and I smiled, not because I had to, not because someone expected it, because I chose to, and that was the difference. I didn't need them, I never had. I walked on, each step lighter, each breath freer. As the sun sank, painting the sky in gold and red, I felt it, a quiet certainty. I was free.